Hello and welcome to another amazing panel for today. As always, well, not always, but on occasion, I'm your guys' MC for tonight as part of the Stolen Droids podcast. Tonight we have an amazing lineup of Marvel panels that we've got going. First up right now, we've got Surviving the Blip, the impact of Thanos, and Hulk snap, Post-Avengers. And then we'll be getting into Falcon and the Winter Soldier recap, and then Marvel, what's next? So before we get into any of that, we do want to, of course, talk about our charity that we are supporting this year, and that is the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. So this foundation is to be able to help researchers find a cure or better ways for individuals to deal with diabetes. And so we're very thankful for everyone that has donated thus far. We've so far raised $565. So please, if you guys are able to, we would love donations. To go to that, you can go to givebutter.com /Utah RemoteCon 2. And we do have a raffle that's going on. On this one, we actually are giving away a Rocket Raccoon action figure. So if you guys do donate, make sure to stay to the end so that you can be able to see that you've won. With that, let's go ahead and bring in your panelists. So we've got moderator Blake Castleman. Blake, go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Thank you. And I am so excited to be here. Excited to be back at RemoteCon. Excited to talk about Marvel. And we've got, some people viewing this panel may remember that we did a panel about Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter, and we got the band back together. So let's introduce everyone. Let's start with you, Erica.
Sure. So I'm Erica. I am part of the Stolen Droids family. I run and DM the Let Us In, which is a system-changing TTRPG. We start our second season officially, and it comes out on June 4th.
Thank you. Craig.
Hi, I'm Craig. I'm the host of the Monday Morning Memory Wipe here on Stolen Droids, a brand new podcast that just started 2 weeks ago, where we distill all the news that came out last week into the most important tidbits so you can forget everything else. And we talk about the week ahead so you can plan and be ready. So, life's too short to remember everything. Let us do it for you. The Monday Morning Memory Wipe.
Thank you.
How's the marketing? Is that good? Did I do it right?
You did great.
You pitched yourself very well. So, London.
So my name is London Reynolds, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a pre-med student in the Honors College and the College of Social Work at the University of Utah. This semester, I was a member of the 5-person committee that planned and implemented the university's pre-med and pre-PA conference. I also facilitated a workshop for the Latinos in Action's virtual Be the Change Leadership Conference, which featured current U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona as its keynote speaker. And then this summer, I'm working on a Cochrane review about environmental exposure disparities and subsequent healthcare outcomes for Utah's Nexus program.
Wow.
Yeah, can I do mine over? Because I don't feel like I've said enough. That's impressive. London is
I
always
also
impressive.
Drink water.
Yeah, I'm here.
you,
Very impressive, London. Yeah, she's great.
Thank you. I'm busy, but it's good. So.
London, this panel's awesome, but London just brings the awesome to this panel. So we're so glad she's here. My name is Blake Castleman. I am a Salt Lake City-based screenwriter and film producer, and I love Marvel. I've loved Marvel since I was a little kid, and this MCU thing has just been amazing. And so I wanted to start talking about the snap that Thanos did. We're going to talk about Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame, And so I wanted to start out the discussion about Thanos' plan. Why was it flawed? He didn't think it was flawed. You know, the plan was a lot of years in the making, but why was it flawed?
There was I binge watched a lot of TV shows. I don't remember which quote this is from, but somebody said along the lines of somebody's like, "I'm going crazy," and the friend was like, "You're not going crazy. It's the crazy people who think they're sane." And Thanos absolutely thought he was sane and only saw that one direct path. This is the one solution, it's the only thing, and had those complete blinders on and just wasn't open to any sort of outside possibilities besides genocide.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand why he couldn't. If he could get rid of half the people, why couldn't he double all the resources?
Right? Or
Exactly.
have something like that. Oh, man.
Yeah.
He's a great villain.
I prefer the comic book version than the movie version, because the comic book version, he has a little bit more of a
Lady
reason.
Death.
Yeah, he's actually courting death, literally. Yeah. And there's actually a reason why half of everything being gone is much more impactful than just, hey, we running out of resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
go ahead, Linda.
Thank you. And that's something that I think all great villains have in common, is that they have such a belief that what they're doing is right. But like Sam points out, and we'll get to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier later, but Sam says, trust me, every time the world gets better for one group, it gets worse for another. And that's the part that he's missing. He's only focusing on the benefits that he thinks people will reap, and he's not focusing on all of the chaos that he's going to create.
And London, it seems like, and I've heard this before in writing conferences, and this really is, I think, the first step to creating a memorable villain. If you're writing something or shooting something, is that the villain thinks they're the hero of their story.
Every time.
They're not just being evil for the sake of being evil, because here's an opportunity to be twirl the mustache crack.
Yeah, well, I just do that so I know where my face ends.
But to Craig's point, and Joss Whedon did reference this in that post-credit scene in the very first Avengers movie, when we briefly meet Thanos. He isn't mentioned by name, but we see his face for a couple seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But the person talking to Thanos, the creature talking to Thanos, talks about courting death. And that's an important part of the comic book that never came out in Infinity War or Endgame, is that Thanos worshipped the death in the comics. And so his efforts to destroy populations, to slaughter, to kill, were to appease this goddess he worshipped and loved.
I wonder if the reason, I'm sure there's an overarching reason why they didn't decide to do that, but from what I was thinking is, I think it created too big of a problem, because then they would have to go into Death's backstory and that whole love story that just was missing this whole time. And then once it came in and did its thing, it's like, well, now we have to worry about doing a movie about Lady Death or her coming back, something crazy like that. But I really did miss the Lady Death part.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think to include this plot element would have confused people, because they were like, who's this death person?
Yeah.
Because in none of the previous films, other than being referenced at the end of that post-credit scene, she wasn't part of the MCU.
Didn't Deadpool try to court her once?
Yes. Because I also think that the problem with having a goddess we've already got Thor and all the Asgardians, and that is already pushing credibility for them as it is. They're really trying to go with a grounded, more reality-based Marvel, and to include her that early in would have really sent it spinning off into the weird, bizarro world that I don't think the everyday average moviegoer would admit to. I think it was a lost opportunity because then we could have Mephisto in the Doctor Strange movie, could have been in WandaVision, could have maintained a lot of the things that have happened already. But I think they did it out of just pragmaticism. They just wanted to make sure that they didn't go too crazy, too weird, too Marvel that early in the process. They were got some momentum going. They were making good movie after good movie after good movie. Let's not throw a wrench in it by all of a sudden throwing in cosmic beings.
Yeah. I think that's a great point.
The other thing I wanted that kind of stood out for me when I rewatched both movies to get ready for this panel was, and we got a lot of ground to cover. We got 2 TV series, we got 1 more movie to cover, and this element certainly impacts both series and the movie we're going to talk about, which is WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Spider-Man Far From Home. We lost 3 significant Avengers.
I'm going to cry all over again. I was crying last night because I finished Endgame.
In these 3 movies. In Infinity War, we lost the Vision. And then, of course, at the resolution to the conflict of Endgame, Tony Stark sacrificed his life. And then we lose Steve Rogers. We lose Captain America.
Oh, you're going to get a lot of people upset with you if you don't say Black Widow.
And we lost Black Widow.
There you go. Black Widow.
I thought he was going to say that because we didn't lose Captain Rogers because he got old.
Well,
and he's on the moon.
Oh yeah, he's on the moon.
Okay, but the world lost. Okay, we're talking about what the heroes that impact what we're going to talk about. Yes, I feel. Oh boy. I just
heard a whole room full of nerds getting upset about Black Widow.
Black Widow fans. I apologize. I am so looking forward to the movie in July. It should have been Hawkeye. Okay. Well, maybe it should have been Hawkeye, but we wouldn't be getting the Hawkeye miniseries, and we wouldn't be getting Kate Bishop coming up. But that's a whole nother panel. Okay, so let's talk about the loss of these 4 individuals. Most specifically, the loss of Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. What impact does it have? Kind of moving from the Endgame world and the post snap and then the blip and then everyone comes back. What kind of initial impact does losing Steve Rogers and Tony Stark have?
I think the most place you can really see it was Far From Home, because it not only showed the deep emotional PTSD that Peter Parker has from the snap and coming back and having to fight, but also losing his greatest mentor. Spider-Man will never know that because Tony looked at that picture of him on next to his dishes, that's what sparked, I need to get him back. He won't know that this whole thing was because of the connection that he had with Stark and the immense love that Tony had for everybody. But seeing the way it was emotionally drawn into Far From Home showed how much the world was going to change and showed how missed he is with all the murals.
And what was Tony's first words to Steve when Captain Marvel brought him home?
It was that they had failed.
I lost the
kid. Yeah.
I lost the kid. Yeah.
Because I think those monuments to Tony Stark in New York, you've got, I think the world finally figured out why the Avengers and why superheroes are important, because we had the Sokovia Accords, and people were debating that. I think the snap kind of told everybody why they're needed, and then you see the fact that Tony Stark saved New York City once when they had the invasion, but then he saved the world the second time, and that's when they started to realize, hey, this guy deserves to be not deified, but definitely memorialized, praised, and have monuments to. And I think the world in general, because Erica's really being very specific about Peter, which is absolutely true. But I think the world in general is starting to realize that superheroes are probably more of an advantage than a disadvantage. Because back when it was just weird people blowing stuff up, it was more of a, well, if they do this, then they're going to retaliate, and it becomes more of an escalation situation. But when you have someone wipe out half the universe and these set of people, the heroic, bring them back, we realize, well, maybe they have a lot more value than we give them credit for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something that, we see that, Peter is dealing with this survivor's guilt, like Erica pointed out, and we see, like Craig said, that Peter and everyone else see this huge void that's been left behind. But like Happy said to Peter in Far From Home, nobody could live up to Tony, not even Tony. And so it's not just going to be Peter starting to step up and fill that role. We're going to need a team again. We're going to need to start to reassemble that team. And what that's going to look like, I think, is going to be really fascinating as we move further into Phase 4.
Yep.
That's so true, London. And talking about Steve Rogers too, and we see this more in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Nobody can live up to Tony. Nobody can live up to Steve Rogers, Captain America, either.
I think Steve Rogers had the advantage of having a history. So I don't think his loss is going to be as much of an impact, because you have he had World War II, where he was a major hero that we all thought had died. He was frozen. Then, he thawed out 70 years later, but he had an ending. And so I think as an audience, we're not upset. We're actually very happy with how it turned out. So I don't think the loss is as severe as Tony. Tony was still a young guy. I mean, he was. I know that London and Erica are just wee children, but Blake and I, I think we're might be the same age as Tony, and so he's not old yet. He had a family, he had a daughter. So to see him sacrifice that so young, I think, is a much bigger impact than Captain America Steve Rogers, who had 70 years plus how many years he was alive, and a history. So we know what he did. People knew who he was. He came back. He's gone. It's a fitting little end.
Yeah, true. So let's move on to we're gonna move in chronological order, not in the order that these projects were made. So we're gonna move 3 weeks past Endgame and to WandaVision, and the fallout of the snap and the blip that's represented in WandaVision, and London is going to lead the discussion for that.
Okay, thanks, Blake. So I've got a couple of questions. And the first one actually starts with the end. So we know that Scarlet Witch, from the history that we have with the comic books, from what we've seen of her throughout the Avengers series, we know that she's a powerful character. This isn't the first time that we've encountered that. But she's also incredibly traumatized, just as Wanda. She's coping with the death of her parents, her brother, Vision, and now arguably the loss of her children. So we've also seen that she has the potential to fall into these damaging coping mechanisms that can be disastrous for the people around her. And in WandaVision, it was really chilling to think that we were seeing her cross the Rubicon and go somewhere that was potentially irredeemable. So Marvel arguably pulled that punch in the final episodes with this Agnes Agatha reveal. So do you think that the final episode was effective as a redemption for Wanda? Or do you think it was even intended to be? I would love to hear people's thoughts on that. So let's start with Erica.
That's a really good question. I think it was meant to redeem her a little bit, specifically because of it's kind of been the last 2 episodes where they went back in time And they're like, okay, so here's what's happening. Here's what's leading you up to this point. So then we more or less understood why she was doing what we're doing, not essentially to justify what she was doing, because several times they asked her, so what do you, like, how did you do this? And she's like, I have no idea. She didn't totally know what she was doing. She didn't know what would happen after that certain border that she told her kids not to cross. She didn't know. And so that makes us feel more sorry for her, because she oh dear, she didn't know what was happening. And we got the reasoning for what happened, which made it a little bit more of a redeemable quality, I guess, because we all understand heartbreak and we all understand pain and loss. And so we connected with that. Like, yeah, if my husband died in that type of dramatic manner and I had superpowers, yeah, I'd probably do the exact same thing. I'd want to bring it back, and I wouldn't know the effects of my powers till after.
And it's more than just the loss of vision.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not forget that
parents.
Well, her parents. It's not just death. It's just she's lost her home. She was in war. She was then kidnapped by Hydra and tested on and repeatedly done experiments on. So she doesn't just have loss. She has a onion of layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of trauma. She is an encyclopedia of trauma. You look up what hasn't happened to her. It's a shorter list than what has. So it really is just a overwhelming tsunami of mental health issues that are hitting her from outside that then culminate into her doing what she's doing. So we all have to be kind of like Monica Rambeau, who was really much more sympathetic, going, I don't think she's doing this to us. I think something's happening to her, and this is the reaction of it. So that's why I don't think it was a redemption at the end. I really think they pulled their punches because they don't want to make her a complete villain yet. They might in the future. They might.
I think she will be technically.
I think
it'd be a great move.
I think her studying the Darkhold kind of puts her in a
seal the deal.
Place.
Yeah. I think she'll
not seal the deal, but it really potentially puts her in a dark place for the Doctor Strange sequel.
That's exactly what I was going to say. She'll probably be the villain, quote unquote, but I have a feeling they'll save her relatively at the end.
I would say that was a partial redemption. She did what she needed to do to free the town. That she had enslaved them.
She realized what she did.
She had enslaved the town for her own personal reasons. The grief was driving it, and maybe she wasn't completely in control of herself. Maybe Agnes was manipulating some things, because she certainly had an end game to take Wanda's powers from her, the same way she took the powers of her mother and the witches back in the 1600s in Salem. I think what Marvel did was they had Wanda right what was wrong. She freed the town and therefore sacrificed her husband and her children, but it's not a complete redemption. And I think that's because her story is going to continue, and they wanted to leave some things open for the continuation of her story in Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, but also she didn't really sacrifice her husband and her children because those were constructs of her mind.
Sure.
So had she actually sacrificed Vision and her children for the town, that would have been something. But this was her just dealing with her mistake. It was dealing with her mistake. I don't think she even knew that she was doing it to the people. I think she just was, I'm going to create it this way, and I didn't realize that this is what happened to them.
Yep.
Although I think at some point she did know.
I think she suspected.
She didn't want to give up what she had.
Yeah.
Or a strong suspicion.
Right.
But I don't think she wanted to give up. And that's where she crossed the line. I feel like she completely crossed the line. And she hasn't come back all the way from it. And her reading the Darkhold in that cabin in the post-credit scene shows that she's consciously keeping herself on the other side of that line that she crossed.
That astral projection.
Well, the fact that she can hear her children's voices calling to her as she's reading shows that there's still a draw in some way, for sure.
Mhm.
I took it as she was trying to learn how to control what she's doing. She's actually, this is the first time she has a manual that she can look at and figure out how to control what she's doing. It just happens to be the worst manual you can get.
Yeah.
I think her kids are coming back, especially since Wiccan and
How old?
Speed. Maybe as young adults. Wiccan and Speed are a very important part of the Young Avengers, and we have Ms. Marvel coming. We possibly have the young girl who wears the Iron Man suit. I can't remember her name right now.
I want to say Ironheart or something like that.
Oh, yeah, Ironheart.
I think that's the one.
Have that. We have Kate Bishop coming. We have
Ree Williamson. That's it.
Yeah, Ree Williamson. I think they're going to come back and be part of whatever version of the Young Avengers becomes part of the MCU. So
we talked a little bit about Wanda's trauma, but she's not the only person who's going through this kind of thing. And so, we see some of these issues sort of happening in other people. As someone who remained during the Blip, Sword director Tyler Hayward is pragmatic, but he's also exhausted and he's resentful. In contrast, you have Monica Rambeau, who was one of the Vanished, and although she's grieving, she's also hopeful and she's willing to work toward peace with other people. And both of those are valid responses to the very different traumas that they experienced with the Blip. So what other kinds of tensions do we expect to see between those who vanished and those who were left behind as we progress further into Phase 4?
Well, I think one of the tensions is I think the people that are more hopeful are the ones who disappeared, because they didn't go through those 5 very hard years. I mean, something we kind of skipped over because I wanted to keep the panels moving is with Avengers Endgame. I didn't think the Avengers plan was very sound, because they figured out how to get the stones, go back in time, bring them back, snap. But before they did that, they didn't give a heads up to anyone. They didn't go to the governments. They didn't go to anyone in a position of power and say, "Hey, just a heads up, we're going to do this."
Well, they didn't want Thanos to find out.
The 3.5 billion people that have been gone for the past 5 years, we're bringing them back. And so that was a big flaw in the Avengers plan. And we can talk about this with the Falcon, the Winter Soldier. There's a real tension between those who lived the 5 years of this kind of darkness, this missing people, losing people, having to deal with the trauma of half the world being gone, all these things being different, and those who came back thinking, "Oh, I fell asleep or I blacked out for a minute," and then they find out that their whole lives are different because people have moved on, people have changed, people have moved into their homes. It's a mess. I mean, it's almost a mess in a different way than what Thanos left the world when he snapped out half of all living things.
Yep.
That's how I feel when I go to Fan X. It's like, I've been gone for all year. What happened? And I'm back where I'm supposed to be. And then it's like, it feels like nothing's changed. And so now
Greg,
I
you're going to be
didn't
snapped
blip.
back. You're going to be snapped back in September.
I'm going to be so happy.
So excited. Oh my goodness.
I'm going to brush the dust off and go, what happened? And then just pretend nothing has changed in the last 2 years.
All right, let's move on to the Falcon, the Winter Soldier. Erica?
Yeah.
Take it away.
So since the next panel will be going into a lot more detail of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, I kind of wanted to do something a little different, which was kind of more like fun facts and some production things that went on. Because a lot of you probably noticed there were a lot more kind of voiceovers than normal at times. Sharon Carter's like Yeah, sure. Wow. Lips didn't match up with what she was saying. And so it was very obvious that something is going on IRL that changed the production of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Because with COVID, there were also a lot of changes to WandaVision. There was a lot that was supposed to happen at the finale of WandaVision. It wasn't supposed to happen. The bunny was supposed to become a demon. There were all sorts of like fighting, cool stuff that was supposed to happen. But something felt a little weird about Falcon and the Winter Soldier as we watched it. And the director technically didn't confirm nor deny, but there was the thought that there was supposed to be a bigger subplot of some sort of disease, because Bucky mentions as he goes into the back of the truck, he's like, there's vaccines in here. People were dying and having all sorts of issues. And the director technically said it had something to do with COVID, but when he went on a different podcast, he was like, I'm not allowed to say that anymore. So
that is the feeling, that there was a COVID type storyline that they completely cut out. In fact, the actress who played Carly's mother, you just see her dying and then dead.
She's a big actress too.
She's a big actress, so she had a much bigger part that they had to pretty much completely cut out for the most part.
I also think that Marvel actually, in their first schedule, they set time aside for reshoots. It's part of the thing. It's not a big deal. So other movies, if they do reshoots, something went wrong, they've got to fix something. Marvel purposely adds time to their production budget and schedule for reshoots. They are, and because they know it's going to have to change. But the problem was this time, I actually think COVID did cause a situation where they couldn't go in and do those reshoots and fix it, which is why they had to digitally manipulate Sharon Carter's face to do their best to try to match up the words. And probably because it was probably some kind of disease, they probably thought it would be inappropriate, so they cut that out too. So you got two things working against it. One, and it's all COVID related. One is actual COVID. We can't do the reshoots. And the other one is we don't want to remind people why we can't do the reshoots and why they're stuck at home watching this early instead of watching Black Widow.
Because sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say COVID impacted WandaVision too. Darcy's in this much of the final episode. And that's because Kat Dennings couldn't travel when they reconvened production in Los Angeles.
Yep.
So
she recently got engaged. Congratulations, Kat.
I know she's watching. Hi, Kat.
I know, right? That would be so cool. But I love looking at the behind the scenes and how it affects the production of the shows. So I thought that was absolutely fascinating, because if you watch like that hour long special of creating it, they were showing how they did a lot of the opening sequence, flying through the canyons and all sorts of stuff, and it was pretty much all digital. It was so impressive that the things that they can do despite IRL limitations. They had to stop production in Europe. Everybody had to travel back. They couldn't go to certain locations. Pretty much everything was done in Georgia. Yeah. So that was absolutely awesome that they are able to combat these sorts of things. And I had done some research as well a while ago, just because I love knowing things, of some different like fun facts and changes that they made with the comics versus the show. And one of my most favorite ones was that Sam Wilson is, for the most part, from New York. But what they did was, for the Falcon Winter Soldier, changed it to Louisiana, because Anthony Mackie is from Louisiana, and it created a much more deep and personal connection to the story and what they did, because so much is from his personal life and his experience that they were able to put into the show. And it's those little things that make me so appreciative of the writers and directors to be able to put these in there to make it a much bigger world than it is. I think that type of stuff is fascinating. So since we're kind of short on time, that's kind of where I'll kind of end things till we go into the next panel, where I'll just explode with fun facts.
Exactly.
And freak out.
Well, one last thing before we go. I think the things like the volume, which they use in The Mandalorian, which is a virtual set that allows them, I think something like that is going to be the norm moving forward. And you won't have to worry about having to fly to Eastern Europe to do a location scene. You'll fly a person there with a camera. They'll take 7 million pictures, internet them back to the people. They'll be able to create a fake world and shoot on set, and it'll look almost like they're right there.
Right.
I absolutely love that technology. It is beautiful, and I think Favor was one of the ones who helped essentially create the thing, and it's not terribly expensive compared to what typical production is.
It's the new green screen / blue screen of the next generation of filmmaking.
But it allows more reality than the Phantom Menace, the Attack of the Clones, where you could tell the whole place was green screen except for the human being that walked around. This one, they can fill a room with what they need, and just the background can be anything they need it to be, or half of it, because they would build half of a ship and then extend the rest of the ship digitally. It's quite a huge piece of technology. It's going to be massive moving forward.
Yeah. Okay, so as Erica said, we are running a little short on time, so we're going to jump into 8 months. Well, Falcon and Winter Soldier was 6 months after Endgame. Now we're 8 months after Endgame, and that is, of course, Spider-Man: Far From Home. And Craig's going to take us on that journey real quick.
Well, this is the weird thing about the Spider-Man: Far From Home, and it takes place pretty far in the future of the current timeline that we as viewers think. Up until now, everything has been relatively close together. So if you saw something in 2018, it was kind of happening around 2018, where Spider-Man: Far From Home is actually happening in 2024. Yeah, it's in the future. Yes, and
the future looks really similar to our world.
It looks exactly the same, only
how
many people there. Well, so here's the thing that we're dealing with about a year, 2 years after the blip, because the snap is when everybody leaves and the blip is when everybody comes back. And so now we have people who have returned who have instantaneously, they think they've been gone for seconds, and they've been gone for 5 years.
How jarring.
And I mean, think about it, because they showed in school, we had Brad David, who was younger than Peter's classmates before the snap. Then the blip happens, and now he's old enough to go with everybody to Europe. So he's now a classmate. So it's like he was a little tiny kid, and now 5 years later, he's this big, massive jock.
Jerk.
Yeah, he's kind of a jerk, but that's the way it goes. But the having to deal with missing 5 years. So it's not like you've missed 5 years of your life. You were in a coma, and it's just that you're still to the same age you were when you left. It's just now everybody is 5 years older. And when you're in school and all you want to do is get older to get out into the world, how does that affect your psyche? Because I know that one of the big complaints was Betty Brant was really upset they were forced to redo the entire school year because they reappeared, I guess, in the middle of the school year. Yeah, and they'd already done midterms, and she was so very upset about that. So
I just think it's fantastic that Peter's main group of kids all vanished.
What fantastic plot armor!
Well, it's 50%. So because there are some people who do leave, like we've got Peter, we've got Mary MJ, we even have Flash, who when he comes back tells everybody that he's not, because he should be 21.
Peter's best friend,
Ned.
Yeah. So,
but Martin Starr, who's the teacher, he did not. He didn't go from the snap. In fact, he thought his wife was snapped. She used that opportunity to fake her death and run away from him. So we've got all kinds of weird things happening. So how would you react to being left behind, or had you been taken away and you lost 5 years? Because you didn't really lose the 5 years. You will have them, but now everybody else is 5 years ahead of you. Especially in high school, I think that's very traumatic.
And I don't know if anybody here or in the chat was involved in this massive Reddit movement, where people, if they joined this subreddit for for Thanos, they would banish. When the snap happened, they banished half of the people who were in that subreddit, and I was one of those people. So I got snapped.
Oh,
And it actually really, yes, Heather was involved. Fantastic. I want to know if you were snapped or not. Oh,
Yeah,
you
she got
snapped too?
Yeah.
And so it actually made me think about what I would do. And the first thing I did was turn to my husband. I was like, if I just all of a sudden disappear, don't you dare get remarried because I'll come back.
I'll go back.
Well, that's what you have to think about, because it's normally 7 years for a court to legally declare you dead. 5 years is close to 7. You're really starting around 5 years. You're really starting to think maybe it's over. And I think that's why that timing is so cruel at 5 years, because at 7 years, you would have thought that it's legally dead. That's why we did it. But 1 year, you're still upset. 5 years, I think a lot of
just
people
about
are
to get
moving on.
over the hump.
You're moving on, or many people moved on.
Crying
Like
over
a
their
year and a
silence.
half.
But I
And-
will not have moved on, Heather. That's my wife, so I'm not gonna. I'm just letting her know I will not have moved on.
That's right.
But like a year and a half, and quarantine and masks sort of became part of our parlance and part of our normal, and like, you know, we've developed a culture around it. In the same way, I felt like Spider-Man: Far From Home probably did the best job of world building with the blip. You know, blip beards are a thing. They talked about people blipping out to leave relationships, right? Pretending that they blipped out. You know, and they just really went into how casually people had sort of absorbed this into their lives. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there would be the really big emotional toll, but there would also be the ways that it had pervaded your everyday life that you didn't even think about, you know?
Yeah, what happens to your pets?
Right.
Well, half of them are
Did your
gone.
pets go?
Yeah.
Yeah, half of everything, every living thing in the world, in the universe, is gone.
Birds.
Yeah.
But you know, it was interesting because Spider-Man kind of dealt with kind of the humorous side of the blip. You know, Mary Jane or Aunt May's talking about, oh, we came home and there was someone living in our apartment, and there's that funny footage of the band suddenly reappearing, members of the band, marching band reappearing in the gym during a basketball game, and everyone's bumping into each other. Mm-hmm. But you look at WandaVision, you look at Captain America and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They're dealing with the trauma. There's real trauma. I mean, WandaVision is about dealing with grief. I keep saying Captain America. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is dealing with guilt. And maybe to London's point, maybe by the time we're 8 months to a year later, and we're dealing with Spider-Man: Far From Home, they're acclimating themselves. They're getting over the trauma of the blip ending, and they're acclimating themselves to this new world where before it, 3 weeks after Endgame, 6 months after Endgame, it's a daily struggle for not only the people that came back suddenly, but the people that were left behind.
Well, one of the things that Far From Home also did, and the reason why I brought up Martin Starr's wife pretending that she had been snapped, is that obviously if something that big is going to happen, people are going to use that to their advantage. And Mysterio did just that by claiming he is from Earth 616.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden we've got people pretending to be these things. We don't know if they're good, if they're bad. We have no idea because this snap has changed everything. And so the biggest revelation of Far From Home, I think, is at the very end when we find out that Tony Stark has given Edith, even dead, I'm the hero, given Edith this AI to Peter Parker to allow him to be the successor of Tony Stark.
Yeah.
But let's think about this. He's 17, 18 years old at the most. What kind of pressure is that? Because he knows it's not like he doesn't know what kind of things he's going to be facing. He just faced Thanos. What kind of pressure is that for a young guy who hasn't even really started his life?
A lot.
Yeah, you think? But what kind of things will we see in movies moving forward, especially the new one coming out?
Well, now that he's been outed, publicly.
Yeah.
By
Yeah, but we
James
can-
Jameson.
We can fix that with a scroll.
Yeah, there's
Have you
Skrull.
ever seen
Yeah,
Peter
yeah,
Parker and
yeah.
Spider-Man in the same room? Well,
A scroll
You are
can be
now.
a scroll can become Peter Parker. That's true.
It's also data manipulation and image manipulation. We could have some of the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. come in there and manipulate some stuff.
The mask, like what
Not-
Black
but
Widow
everything.
I
wore
love
They got-
that thing.
in Winter Soldier.
Yeah, they got a lot more than that, though. They could do all kinds of stuff. London?
I mean, something that, speaking of like the deep fakes and fake news and some, things that we're actually dealing with right now that they, I mean, they were not subtle in the ways that they addressed it. From the George Orwell quotes about, objective truth to Mysterio's "I control the truth." People need to believe, and nowadays they'll believe anything. I mean, those are points that they hit hard. So yeah, I mean, there is this sort of a vacuum, and people are looking for safety, for comfort, for new heroes. And like I said, Peter is willing to step up now. But like I said before, he's also going to need a team. This is absolutely not something that anybody can do alone, much less a kid who is 17 years old and terrified. So yeah, I don't see him trying to offload that responsibility again, but I certainly see him needing to assemble a group that can help.
Well,
And
So I wonder if-
maybe Peter will be a key to the reassembling the Avengers.
Yep.
well, I do know that the blip is a conspiracy theorist's dream, and it just opens the world to everything is possible. Everything is a fix. Everything is in. It's all part of the Illuminati, which might be happening. All kinds of weird things going on.
Right on.
It's so fun.
Okay, we are almost out of time. So really quick, and Reddit has nothing to do with this. Forget Reddit and their ways. I wanted to go around the panel and really quickly, when the snap happened, did you go away or did you stay, and for what reason?
I would stay.
Okay.
For my if I had the choice, which I do, I would rather know something than not know something. So I'd rather live in this world where half the population's gone and I have answers.
Okay. London.
While I agree with Erica, because I would rather know, I think because it's the worst thing I can possibly imagine to leave people behind and not be able to tell them what happened and then I'm okay. I think I'd be snapped.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Craig.
With my luck, I would stay, but everybody I know would be gone. So it'd be me in a world of strangers, just wandering around.
Well,
And
like Peter, all your friends would come back in 5 years.
I wouldn't even know for about 2 weeks because I'm kind of a recluse anyway. So I'd be like, "Oh, I gotta go to the store," and I'd be, "Why is it I'm awful quiet on Facebook today?" And then,
Why is Bob not texting me back?
I've been trying to talk to Blake for a week, but he just won't respond. He must be busy.
Well, I would be blipped out. I would go away, because then in 5 years I could come back and I would be 5 years younger.
You look really good for your age.
Yeah, he's only
Yeah.
72.
Because I still have my driver's license. I still have my driver's license, and this is how old I am.
You're like Flash.
Yeah.
Flash, I feel so bad for him.
He's a weasel. Don't feel bad for him.
I do, but his parents just completely neglect him. It's so sad.
Well,
All right,
he can cry in his money.
Colin, would you be snapped out or would you stay?
Oh my gosh. I think I would stay. Just purely because I hate the unknown.
Exactly.
And so just disappearing into the great abyss, I don't want to do that.
Then you get
I'd rather stay and help rebuild.
5-year rest. Isn't that great?
No, but you don't know. You only get a second.
Now
Yeah,
I'm showing
but then you have all the stress of coming back and being homeless, and who knows what happened.
If you get to stay here, half the people are gone. There's no more traffic. There's plenty of stuff at the grocery stores. You don't have to fight at Christmas time for toys. It's
Are
great.
you
Now you're
Thanos?
sounding like Thanos.
That's true. The only good thing to come from COVID was I was able to jump on the highway and not take 2 hours to get to work.
And we saved a lot of gas. We saved a lot of gas money.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I didn't have to jump on the
100%.
highway to go to
Hundreds
work.
and
Yep.
hundreds of dollars.
It's
I may have only gone
crazy.
100 miles all year, so that's
Mhm.
good.
Well, guys, during this panel, we raised $100. So thank you guys
Yeah.
for donations. We really appreciate it. Our winner of the Rocket and Groot raffle prize. Can I get a drum roll, please? Robert Neal.
Robert!
Just
Oh,
Robert just
yeah.
needs an action figure.
Robert! Yay!
The one guy who needs an action figure in the whole world, Robert.
Does he just have an army of action
He
figures?
takes photographs of action figures every day. They're wonderful. He's
That's
very
awesome.
great. He's great at
Really
it. But
good.
One of the reasons I go back to Facebook is to see what Robert's posted with his action figures. It's a true art what he does.
yeah, he does a great job.
That's so sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us and participating in this panel. We really appreciate it. It was absolutely fascinating. I'm really excited to start jumping into phase 4 here,
Yes.
and actually be able to see some films this year. So
In theater.
Black
One
Widow.
every 3 months for the next 2 years.
Yes.
Loki is June 11th. They moved it up to or 9th. They moved
they
it up
moved
to
it
up.
Wednesday. They're releasing them on Wednesdays. And then the Black Widow finally July 11th.
Finally.
So
Yep.
excited.
And then Shang-Chi in September. And then we have the Eternals in Spider-Man in December. And then we
Goes
have
on
4
and
next
on.
year. So we're going to have one
Yes.
every 3 months. It's going to be great.
And then all the Disney Plus
Gonna be
stuff.
sweet.
So
hmm
I'm gonna nerd cry. We better stop.
okay.
All right,
you,
guys. Well, make
Erica.
sure to
Thank you,
check out
Fred.
our.
London.
Thank you, Blake.
Thank you, Blake.
Yes.
Good to
Hey,
see you.
mine's right there.
Make sure to
Yep.
check out our next panel, Falcon and the Winter Soldier recap. You can find most of these guys in that next panel. So we will see you guys there. Thank you.
Thanks.